Okay, we're going to thread some needles. And we have a little help here from Lakshmi, the pitbull. It is nearly impossible to thread a needle properly without a pitbull sitting on your lap. So go and get yourself a pitbull, and they will inevitably crawl up in your lap, possibly fart. But don't worry, fans. You can't smell it, so don't worry. But she likes to sit in my lap, and here she is. Anyway, so to start with threading a needle, you need a needle. And we'll talk about needles in another video, but this is this is Lakshmi getting poked in the nose by a needle. This is a needle called a between. Now, what it's between is kind of lost to the sands of time, I think, but it's also known as a quilting needle. It's not really a quilting needle, it's a typical hand needle, but you want a between, not a sharp. A sharp is thicker. I don't know what they use sharps for, but they're not really good for hand sewing, or at least not what we're doing. Now, people will tend to go and get themselves a needle like this because it's got a big eye, and therefore it's easier to thread. But this, you see how much thicker it is than our needle and how much longer. It's not great for hand sewing because you want to make small stitches, and you also want to make stitches that don't put holes in your fabric. This is going to put holes in your fabric. So if you've been using needles like this, don't. I also don't like to buy assortments because they have lots of needles like this in them and not any needles like this. This is a size 10 between, or a size 10 quilting needle. So now I am 50. So I can see that the hole in that needle from there, but I can't necessarily get a thread to go through it for some reason. Anyway, what I typically do is I put on my cheaters, have a pair of stylish cheaters that you can get cheaply at the drugstore to magnify your thread. I don't like to sew with these on because they fall down the end of my nose and then I sound like this. But what I do is, take them off right now, they're falling down the end of my nose. I cut a bunch of threads and then I thread up a bunch of needles at the same time and stick them all on my pincushion. Because, as I said, I don't like to sew with these on because they slide down my nose. I have a very tiny nose. And they slide down the end of my nose and then cut off my breathing. And then I'll wonder why I feel like I'm turning blue and about to pass out, and it's because I can't breathe. Because I'm not smart enough to breathe through my mouth. I don't know, there's something definitely wrong with me. But anyway, I cut a bunch of threads and then I put them all on needles, and then I have a bunch of needles all threaded up, ready to go to sew, and then I can sew for quite some time without having to thread a needle again. And then I can take my glasses off. So what you want, this is my Gutermann silk thread. You want to take a length of thread, and I do like about that long. That's about a yard, a meter of thread. And I'll put it there, and I'll do another meter. Cleverly, Gutermann has made their spools of a size that if I unwrap up to the top and down to the bottom twice, it's about a meter. And they're Germans, so they've probably engineered it exactly that way. So I'm going to cut 4 lengths of thread because I have 4 needles sitting over here waiting to be threaded. And I'll show you a couple of different ways to do it, because there's more than one way to skin a cat or thread a needle. Now, one of the things that's very important is that the top of your thread is unfuzzy. And I've just cut it with my very sharp scissors, my little Ginger embroidery scissors, and they're very sharp. It's important to keep your scissors sharp, which means you don't want to cut anything other than fabric or thread with them. And frankly, I have different scissors for wool and linen versus silk, because silk takes a sharper edge to make a nice cut. So There you go. You can, if you want, lick the end of the thread to get any little twisty bits to stick back together. But frankly, it doesn't work as well as if you just cut it. So if you have a top that's being all twisty and unraveling and things, just nip the top off again with your scissors. Now, I do something that I didn't know I did until one of my students said, "You don't thread the needle, you needle the thread," which is exactly what I do. I hold the thread in my left hand, and I'm right-handed, and I bring the needle to the thread. So I turn it so that the eye is up and down. I turn it basically so I can't see the eye, which makes me wonder why I have my glasses on. And then I put the needle onto the thread and then pull it through. And at the bottom, give your index finger a lick, very unsanitary, and hold the threads, two threads together, wrap it once around your index finger, and roll. So you've got this tangle like that, and then put your middle finger fingernail and your thumb on it and pull until you make a snaggle like that. This is a common tailor's knot, very typical. Everyone who sews does this. And people who tell you that you have to make a nice little invisible knot are out of their minds, because if your knot's any thinner than that, you'll pull it right through your fabric. Also, I've examined garments that are 500 years old, and they have knots that look exactly like this. So people have been doing this for a very long time. So there's one. Get another one. This one looks like it might be a little fuzzy on the top, so I'm going to nip that off because I don't like it. There we go. Bring your needle to your thread and stick it through. Now sometimes you'll bring your needle to your thread a couple of times and miss and end up messing up the edge of your thread and making it fuzzy. And Shmi clearly doesn't like that. Can you hear him making noise? If you make the top of your thread fuzzy, just nip off the end. There's no harm in it. Not going to lose that much. Now with this next one, I'm going to show you a different way. If you just can't get the gist of sticking the needle on the thread, you can also stick the thread through the needle. I just don't. I don't know why. I don't know if I clearly learned to stick the needle on the thread when I was very young, and I don't even remember. But you can also stick the thread in the needle eye. It's fine, as long as it gets there. But they also have these things called needle threaders that you can use if you really can't get the hang of getting the thread into the eye, or maybe you don't have great manual dexterity. What you do is you stick this wire thing, see that point of the wire thing, into the needle eye until it's there. And then you take your thread and you stick your thread through that bit of wire. See that there? And pull it. I'm clearly incapable of using a needle threader. Pull it through. So you see my thread is through the wire, and then you pull the wire bit out of your needle and it threads it. Now needle threaders, they're very delicate. They're also very cheap. They don't last very long. It's a very, very chintzy piece of aluminum or something. The needle threader, that wire bit will break with use, but you can buy a whole stack of them for $1 or something. So if you really can't get the hang of threading a needle, use a needle threader. There's no harm in it. It's a little slower, I find, but if you're having trouble threading needles, it's not slower. If you can't do it, you can't do it, and there are things to help you. And there are different types of needle threaders. This is the only kind I have. It's actually my husband's. He has big hands and finds it hard to thread a needle the normal way, so he uses a needle threader. But I sometimes use a needle threader if I'm having a day when my eyes are very tired. Not that I really think I look at the needle when I thread it. I think I put these glasses on and everything, but I honestly just kind of shove the eye of the needle at the thread until it works. Like pure brute force. So that's it, really. That's all you need to know about threading needles.